And welcome back YouTube. And today we're having a box. Or well, it's no, we're not building this. This is just a testing raft for me to kind of test stuff on. It's kind of useful. Recommend you building one just for yourself to test stuff up. It's handy. You can test the guns. I usually test them on this side of a platform, and it has all the things needed for testing guns. So yeah. Now we're gonna be building an advanced cannon, so that pretty much is what it is. Well, it is what it is. We go to the advanced cannons, and I'm gonna place its ammo controller. And we're gonna try to build something that's 200 millimeter. So 200. You must consider that each part is like a box, so it's 200 by 200 millimeters, and that's how it is. So if you're building 200 millimeter shells, and if we want 2-meter shell rack, then that means we need 10 pieces, and each of these ammo customizers takes 2 modules, while this single one only contains 1. So 2 of them, that would mean 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And then you press Q to get this thing. And we can check, of course, whether or not we are correct or not by simply clicking here. And 201 millimeters. I usually gonna get it like this, and then you try to increase it. It gets a pain in the butthole, and you try to do it like this, and it changes your numbers, because why not? But it says 2010 millimeters. So I'm gonna keep this one here, just in case. But it does tell you some very basic stuff about your ammunition. Do take note, this is mostly informative, and it does not actually represent the actual shells that you're using, so take it as such, take it with a big grain of salt in a lot of cases. Let's, this optimal barrel length of accuracy, you would most likely want to have better, because this literally means to 1 accuracy factor of 1, which is really bad actually. In fact, you would want less than 1, and in a lot of cases, so you're gonna be building barrels that are bigger than this. 3.6 millimeters meters are just not sufficient. Optimal barrel length on propellant burn is 18, however, so this is when we're gonna reach this muzzle velocity, even though that's yet again not completely correct. If you build barrels bigger, you can increase velocity past the point, and if you build the barrel smaller, it will go less than this. That's kind of how it works. We also have expected reload time from clip, time to shell pass to the ammo clip, and how the cooldown of the barrels itself. And of course, we're gonna start with shell noses. We have Disruptor, which pretty much kills shields, but you kinda need the MP behind it, and it kinda drains the MP out of the shell as well, so that's kinda, well, it has its uses, but not really. Squash Hat, which creates thump damage, and all the HE behind it will produce, and it will produce also shrapnel inside. I don't really find this one useful at all. Skimmer Tip, 100% chance of skim back of water surface upon the air, increases the angle of indication for skimming from 15 to 30 degrees. Completely and utterly useless in my opinion. Then it's the Sabot, which is very handy for if you want to build very fast shells that have a lot of penetration on them, but not that much damage. It does have the biggest speed modifier, so it will increase. If we go here, now it's 812. If we click Sabot, 1110 meters. Then it's the Shape Charge Hat, which pretty much benefits from HE. It will create a penetration. You actually get this heat penetration metric that is calculated through what you see in the actual description when you go over it. It also has an expected explosive radius, heat particle count. These are shells that I use a lot, and maybe a bit too much. I think they have been reduced slightly bit in how powerful they are through the last update, but they are still very useful. They do get negated by double shielding. That's something you have to remember. If there are 2 shields on the enemy ship, then this is gonna get negated heavily. Most of them will not get through the hull at all. But otherwise, this heat penetration metric on a bigger guns, it's just ridiculous. It goes so high that it will go through the entirety of the ship length, even if it's 100 meter long. Really, it can be ridiculous. And then we have AP composite and hollow point, which is, they're slightly bit different from one another. AP is kind of the most all around. The composite adds fragmentation. The hollow point does like a RAM thingy, but yeah, it's not really useful. Then we have the shell middle, which is HE. That should be self-explanatory. Solid, which is yet again self-explanatory, it's just solid. Sabot pretty much increases the speed of the shell, but it does set explosive damage to 25% for all of this. The same goes with the shell nose Sabot hat. It does the same thing. So Sabot is useful if you're building Sabot shells. That's what it's useful for. If you're adding something else like HE or flak or something, it just doesn't work. Flak, then it increases the radius, but it does less damage. Useful on certain shells, kind of useless. It's also useful on the anti-missile systems and stuff. Gravity compensator pretty much creates it helps with shooting into space. Smoke, no real idea what this would be useful for. EMP, pretty much EMP. It's self-explanatory. Then you have the fuses, which one thing to mention about the fuses is they're self-explanatory. They do what it's written on them, and it also have pretty neat description. But one thing to notice about them is that they are having this maximum length of part 200 millimeters. I think that all of them have 200 millimeters, yeah. And this 200 millimeters means that we have now 200 millimeter shell, but placing 201 millimeter. But placing the inertial shell fuse reduces the shell size by 1 millimeter, and that because the inertial fuse can be maximum length of 200 millimeter. This is very useful if you're building something like big guns, like 500 millimeter. You can see that it's not 5000 millimeter shell, but 4700, because the inertial fuse can maximum size of 200 millimeters. So the 300 millimeters shell kind of gets reduced in size by 300 millimeters, the entire shell. That's with the fuses. Then we have stabilized fin body, which pretty much stabilizes the shell, but this is only useful in certain cases. Shape charge secondary, yet again. This, like, if it hits a certain era or something like that. But I never tend to use this at all. Maybe I should try it. And then there is the frag warhead, which creates the frag. Now we're gonna be using HE, so placing two of these like that, and the inertial fuse, because the inertial fuse is, in my opinion, the most useful one. It pretty much just bounces on, well, explodes on angle. God damn it. Yeah. Angle tolerance 10 degrees. If it gets any more than that, it will explode. So that is pretty much useful. And then, of course, we have the shell rear. It's not necessary to add any of these onto the shell. The only thing you really need is the head. Or, well, not even the head. You can replace it with something else as well, and it would work. The shell will work. And this is gravitation ram, which pushes ships around. Base bleeder, visible tracers, which create visible tracers. Super cavitation, which pretty much allows you to shoot underwater. So yeah, visible base bleeder, on the other hand, it adds 20 speed increase to the actual shell, and if you look at it, 445 meters a second. If you add a base bleeder, it actually goes to 467 meters a second. This actually doesn't work. As I said, this is only for reference. The reason why it does that is because it presumes that it's an optimal barrel length of 12 meters. Now, if the actual barrel length would be 20 meters, then we would actually continuously gain from the gunpowder casing, and the base bleeder will actually then slow down the shell to a certain extent. Not completely, but it would. But if you're building guns that would actually be smaller than 12 meters, then the base bleeder will help to increase the speed of the shell. at the same time. It also does reduce the shell length to 100 millimeters. The maximum length of this part is only 100 millimeters. So if you're building a shell that is bigger than 100 millimeters, you're gonna reduce the shell in size. So this initial shell that required 2010 millimeters, it now only requires 1908 millimeters. So yeah. Now some other stuff that is kind of useful here to note is the expected reload time from a clip, time to pass the shell to the clip. This is kind of useful as one, more or less, because if you do use clips, then you usually will load them fast enough through the entire of the battle, unless you've forgotten to do so, in which case, oopsie for you. Expected time for barrel cooldown after firing is 13 seconds. Well, yeah. So, this base bleeder does something that is very useful. It doesn't really reduces the speed of the shell that much, but it does improve the cooldown by significant portion in a lot of cases. So it's useful for that one reason, and that's why I'm using it. It reduces by a full second. That's actually pretty useful. Of course, it also say their expected recoil, kinetic damage, armor piercing. Do take note, this is all based off this and optimal propellant burn and accuracy and stuff like that, and it's very complex in all, but you should just check the numbers for reference only, as it, yeah. But we got kind of an idea how many, but expected reload time from clip, this is the one I'm actually looking for, 12 seconds. Well, this is actually quite a lot. That pretty much means how many autoloaders we're gonna have to need and what kind of a gun we're gonna have to build. How many of these autoloaders we're gonna need, because the autoloaders, well, they're complex, at least in my opinion. I'm not that good with them. Never been. This is gonna be turning into somewhat of a tutorial instead of me building a gun. Ugh. Oh yeah, load sub object, new objects, yeah. 2-axis turret. 2-axis turret itself is kinda for specialized build. 1-axis turret is way more coherent, you could say, because you're gonna use it way more, and you'll just place it down like that. Now I'm gonna go with something of fairly easy build, if I wanna put it that way, and I'm gonna do something kinda silly. Now, gauge increase here, as you may note, that this is the splitter, left and right splitter. It does say left and right. What the hell does that mean? Well, you see that there are these pins on the side and on the top of this item. The side ones are outward pins, and the top one here in this case is an inward pin. This is where the advanced cannon firing piece has to connect. So I'm gonna actually, this is actually really annoying because it doesn't let you placing any other place like this. It only allows you to connect over the input, but not out of the exits or the bottom, which is very annoying. So I'm gonna use this trick to get it like this. I just made like a huge circle here so that we get the intake at the top. Why is this important? Well, it goes very simply. I'm gonna put a couple of gauge increases to demonstrate this. If I put the advanced firing piece here, and if I put it up here, it says gauge of 179 millimeters, and this is properly connected. This one goes down, and then it goes into this side one, and it goes back up. So both of these gauge increases are connected. But if I place my gun on this one, you will note it's only 120 millimeters. That's because this one goes down here and it stops. This left and right splitter is not connected properly, and as the end result, the gun will not be able to connect any other part that is placed on here or down here. This is completely unconnected now. So you have to remember that the gauge increaser will only connect over the top. It has to always connect to the actual firing piece. You can add more items in between, but as long as they all follow this line, it goes like this, and then it's gonna go up and down. If you're gonna cooling units that reduce the cooldown, but pretty much this gun, it has a line. It comes from here, it will go down, left and right, and then through this. It will be all connected. So yeah, it's just like a visual thingy, but you have to remember it. If you don't, and you place your increasing splitters left and right wrong way, it will not connect your advanced firing piece to the actual items you're having on your gun. Now I'm gonna just check how big this thing is. 293. Okay. I never remember how much this actually adds to the gun size. I should remember, but no, I don't. Oh yeah, this is gonna be an approximate the right size. And we're gonna also post yet another tricky thing doing here, because well, they're annoying, as I said before. Yeah, so this now connects. It goes through here, it comes here, goes down, and then splits to the left and right section. So this is actually now connected to all current pieces of the gun. And of course, at the front, we have to put up usually a mantlet. You don't have to, you can put the barrels right on top, but I usually place a mantlet on, and it's 402 millimeters. We don't really want 202 millimeters. So we're gonna go to press Q, number of barrels, 2 barrels, and now we get 201 millimeters. It pretty much just splits it in half, the initial gouge. So the biggest gouge for a single barrel gun is, of course, 500 meter. For 2 is 250, and then it goes down to, for 3 is 225, then it's 179, and downwards and downwards and downwards. But yeah, we're gonna put a couple of bore excavators here. They reduce the cooldown of the gun and allows us to fire faster, and also a couple of regular barrels. I cannot do this just more or less for the looks, but the regular barrels are a bit more sturdy than the excavators, so that kind of helps. Now the muzzle brake reduces the recoil, but also reduces the shell speed. So if you're using very slow shells, yeah, you may not be in the best there. And now we're gonna place the autoloaders. And the autoloaders are the complex part here. As you know, these are these pins. This is where it gonna connect, and you can see that there are these pins on the autoloader as well. So these don't really matter how you connect them, as long as they are connected to one another, they're gonna work. You can place it like this, you can place it like this. You know, if you place it like this, it's gonna work. If you place it like this should not connect, but it's saying that it does. Now if you place it like this, it should not connect. You can see there, not connected. Now this, I presume it's a bug, because this is not supposed to connect over the ass of the autoloader, but it does nonetheless, which is, in my opinion, very very annoying, because if you're building multiple gun system and you're gonna have these components very close to one another, and you have like this, and this butt part connects to, let's say, touches another autoloader, it could be very annoying, and it connects to the other gun, and you can never tell whether or not to which gun is connected properly, and by the time you figure that one out is already too late in a lot of cases. Now there are a couple of tricks you can use with these autoloaders. Like for example, I cannot connect an autoloader down here. It will not connect to the gun. Now this one will also not connect, because as you see, the pins are not on these left and right splitters. They cannot connect stuff to them. But if I place it one here, now all 3 of them are connected. Yes, that's right. They connect through one another. So we're gonna just put it like this. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's 12 of them. And why 12? Yeah, expected reload time from a clip, 12 seconds. You see, the way that the gun barrel is loading goes through one clip, it loads in, it fires, it goes to the next one, and next one, and next one, and next one, and next one. And because it takes 12 seconds to load one autoloader, that's how it works. Now you may know that it says total loading speed modifier of 1.32. What the hell does that mean? Well, that pretty much means that our shell is gonna load at 1.32 times slower due to the complexity thingy, as it says here. I mean, here it says 12.3 seconds, but if I would actually just load them like this, it would take 15 seconds to go around. So by the time it fires, it would then sit for 3 seconds or so still before it would fire the next shell. Now that said, we can actually slightly bit fix that by simply placing an ammo clips. Now it's due to the complexity thing, and this is where the whole complexion of this building comes into, and why the autoloaders are so much of a pain in the ass. I'm gonna just you put the input feeder on any of these that has the pins out, you press Q, and then you get this ammo controller. You click on it, and then you have either assign all unassigned intakes. If you're using multiple shells, I would not recommend, or just as I do it, force assign to all intakes to this ammo source. That's the guarantee one. Now yeah, so this gun, if we now tested it, give me a second, we're gonna put the limit of max fire rate of 60 seconds. This will limit the how fast the gun will fire to once per second. But as you're gonna note, 12 autoloaders should just be enough, right? But yeah, it's not gonna be. It's not gonna be good enough. 1, 2, and it's cooling down because I don't have enough coolation, right? Yeah, 6.25 seconds on the cooling. Oh, we're gonna need more coolation. Yes, gauge increase. Oh, and I'm not on the gun, aren't I? Yeah, I'm silly. Yeah. I'm not really. I kind of forget about that. We need to cool it a bit more than this. Oh, yeah. I'm constantly forgetting the collation parts, and that kind of always screws me over at the end. And mostly I forget about it because collation parts are only one in length and 2.72 seconds. We need to get to 2 seconds. So just the demonstration purposes, I'm gonna actually put it down on 1 second. Kind of screwing around here, but this is turning into more of a tutorial video than anything else, so I kind of want to do this right. Now it's the collation part of 1.39. Yeah, it's gonna be good enough. But if we fire all 12 shells, it will enter and it will say reloading on the left side of the screen. When it says gun waiting, it's just waiting, and now it says reloading. Yeah, and that's that delay that we're getting because we're not having enough autoloaders. How you fix that? Well, you pretty much place more autoloaders. Of course, that increases the loading speed modifier, and well, so this is kind of a problem there. But they also note something else, and now it dropped. You saw that? 0.93? Previously it was 1.3, right? Yeah, that's because the loading speed modifier, as you see here, it's actually different from each autoloader, and it differs depending on how many of these ammo clips are connected to a single autoloader. The reason why it didn't show this before is very simple. Only one of the ammo clips was actually loaded. The other one was empty. So the autoloader was only taking from one of these and showed us the 1.3 like everybody else, but because it has 2, it now dropped to 0.93. So while previously 1.3 was not good enough, now 0.9 will be good enough. Even though this gun will not be good enough. So if you place 2 on each of these, it should be good enough for the entirety of the gun system. Of course, if I would actually mirror this and not screw around, it would also be nice. Yeah, so you just kind of have to play around, and this is why I recommend you to go and test stuff. Now, more ammo clips you have to an individual autoloader, you can have maximum of 4, to what I remember. It will add to the load, it will decrease the loading speed of an individual autoloader to a certain degree. Now, also the shell length comparative to the actual autoloader size does matter, and a bunch of other stuff. How many gunpowder casings you're having on the shell, as well as all other stuff. But that something that you can read right here. The actual autoloaders, it pretty much just depends on how many you have and how many of these are connected to a single autoloader. So now this is a bit ugly and I'm not gonna use it. I'm gonna have to fix it. Gonna do that later on. Well, later on. I'm gonna pretty much just fix it properly because it's not that tall yet. It may look odd here, but once it actually put into the ship and proper hull around it, it's actually not gonna be that big. And the reason why I'm using the 2 barrels one is also if you use 2-piece, it just makes the turret bigger. It doesn't really add much of anything else to the actual gun system. So if you have a choice of building with a 2-barrel system or 3-barrel or 4-barrel system, then yeah, just go here, number of barrels 2, it will reduce the size of what you have inside of the ship. There is also something else to remember. Why did I place my autoloaders like this? And that is very simple. Actually, this is kind of silly and simple at the same time. If I place anything on here, on this side, for example, like this. Now you may think, if the turret turns, wouldn't this get clipped? Yeah, it will. Well, it should, but it goes right through it, as you may notice. And this is kind of handy to know. If you have 3 or up to 3, it will turn just fine. As soon as you add more, like 5, then now it will no longer turn. It will get to here and it's stuck, as you may note. So it's kind of useful to note that if you are trying to build like a symmetrical turret and you're guessing and you're trying to get it to turn inside a certain volume, just build them 3 size-wise and it will work. It will turn with no problems whatsoever. Now I think that all of these are loaded. Yes, they are, and now we can test our gun yet again. And let's fire. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Reloading, but you see there? Yeah, the reload is now fast enough to follow the shell, to follow the gun waiting time, so it will fire nonetheless. And so yeah, this is how you kind of predict how many. It's complex, it's annoying, and it's the autoloaders. They're gonna hinder you the most. These things are just so annoying. Well, and this has turned into a, yeah, it has built tutorial on building the guns. I just wanted to build the gun, but apparently, I mean, we're 30 minutes in, for crying out loud. I have to cut this video. So yeah, I'm gonna actually fix the gun, and pretty much we're gonna see it in the next episode when we're gonna or actually place it in the actual ship. Of course, it's still missing some parts. We're gonna actually have to, if you look at here, it also gives me some other recoil force of 51,000. That's a bit high. Cooldown of 1.39 seconds. That's a bit too low. I mean, we're only firing once per second, and with 2 barrels, that means that each barrel only needs to cool down itself in about 2 seconds periods. So 1.39 is a bit excessive and not really needed. So yeah, that's loaded shell inaccuracy of 0.34. That pretty much depends on the barrel length and the type of the shell are you using. There, fin stabilizers or something like that, that improves the accuracy, not really needed in my opinion. You just build your guns long enough. 0.37 is not the best, but it's gonna be workable and most likely just make the guns a bit longer, and that's gonna fix the whole issue. Loaded shell base speed of 461 meters a second. It's good enough. It makes, in real life, 1000, 2000 meters a second shells velocities are pretty much what you expect. Here, 461 meters a second in the game. It's actually fast. Fast. It's not that fast. You can still get those 1000 meter per second shells, but there is no real need to do it. Just, if you look at crime cannons, they have the top speed of something like 200 meters a second. So having a base speed of 500 meters a second, every second shell that the shell is fired, yeah, it's gonna be good enough. It's not really needed. But yeah, that's how you build an oh yeah, one more thing. Advanced cannons. Hydraulic absorbers. This will reduce the actual recoil of the ship. If the ship is started to list or something like that because of the recoil of the gun, you add these. Now if the ship is big enough, you can ignore that to an extent. It actually kind of helps, because when the ship fires and if the ship remains stable, when the guns fire, will push the ship out of a predicted trajectory to where the enemy ship is aiming, and that can save you actually some hassle when you're getting hit. It kind of allows your ship to dodge. Would not recommend doing that, but it can work in times in certain builds. Now hydraulic absorbers, of course, reduce the recoil of the gun. Bigger, the 4 meter ones are the best ones. Recoil is reduced by 0.9 feet meter of hydraulics. So it's the bigger you're using, it's way more effective than the smaller ones. So if you have a choice, use the longer ones instead of the smaller ones. Like here, 4 meter ones gives me recoil force of 42,000. If I place 2 of these smaller ones, it gives me pretty much kind of the same number, but it's 42,239. So it's not that much of a difference, but still, if you better use the 4 meter ones if you can. Anything else? No, not really. Pretty much, yeah, I recommend you building something. If you want to build your guns, build something like this and test your guns in advance so that you don't cry later on. Especially because these autoloaders can screw you up pretty big time from time to time, especially when you're building like do I have an example of something like that? Most likely I don't. So project, which one is it? 410, no. Quad 430. Something a bit more complex, like the multiple barrel systems. They can seriously screw you over. Yeah, I actually, this is one of the guns where I was spending way too much time on it. Never managed to get it to work because I didn't really understand how the autoloaders work. But yeah, I recommend you building one of these, testing your guns in advance. And once we're gonna build the ship, we're gonna pretty much, when you wanna save something like this, just go to here. You have this on your build, you press C, save subject object, and then just click on one of these like this and accept. And you're gonna have that turret then saved, and you can place it at any time you want to on your ship. It helps you a lot. I recommend you testing these things because they can be very, very annoying, and there are actual equations that allows you to figure out how much of an autoloader you need, but it's pain in the ass. That equations, I kind of fiddled with them, but didn't manage to get them to really figure out. Now maybe they're also changing how the autoloaders work all the time, how the speed modifier works and stuff like that. So Yeah, you kind of have to be careful. More of these is not always better. More of autoloaders uh, does not always equal to having your shells loaded on time, and it can kind of screw you over. And be careful and test it all the time. As I mean, with the smaller one shell ones, autoloaders, it's a bit simpler. 1 meter shell, especially with the belt fed, because this increases the loading speed by 4 times, and it says at the end result very useful. But for bigger guns, once you start dealing with these things, it gets very complex. As I said, the equation for it is actually very complex on how this actually whole thing works, and it's usually a bit too complex. It's usually better to just look at the gun and look at the total loading speed modifier. And you have to remember, it's for individual ones. It's each one of these could be different. If you have, it depends on how many of these you have loaded, or what kind of a shell. If you're loading multiple different shells, what kind of a shell is loading in that specific autoloader. You also have to remember that it pretty much goes one, another, second, third, and so, yeah. And that's it. This is pretty much how you build guns in advanced cannons and stuff like that. 36 minutes. I went way over time. I'm talking way too much. Oh well. See ya.